So it looks like we have people being admitted right now. We want to get started right now.
Patrick tells
we're ready to go. We're ready to go.
Well, I want to thank everybody that's taken time out of your weekend to spend with us with this NAACP Men's Empowerment Forum. The title is Mind, Body, and Spirit. We're going to thank the panelists, and we'll introduce the panelists in just a minute. But our goal today is to gain a better understanding how we as men of color can cope with and deal with this environment. There's a myriad of things that are happening at the same time that affect the whole community, but as men of color, it sometimes affects us even more. We're talking about the pandemic one. We're talking about the high rates of unemployment that affects us over proportionally. We're also talking about this climate of civil unrest. We have a lot of things that are going on now that affect us. And one of the things that we as Black men don't usually pay attention to is we pay attention to everything else except for our own mental and spiritual health. So we have a panel of specialists that are going to talk to us about those areas. The people that are involved in this particular event are, one, we're going to hear in just a second an introduction from the president of the Maricopa County Branch of the NAACP. Behind the scenes, we have the most important person for putting this thing together is Patrick Brown. I know he's behind the Maricopa County Branch logo right now, but if you could just expose yourself for a second, Patrick, because none of this would happen without him. Some of the things that he's done is incredible. The co-moderator here today is going to be the treasurer for the NAACP Maricopa Branch is Ken Turner. My name is Garen Bond. I'm on the committee as well. Our panelists, we're going to introduce them in a second, but before we do that, we're going to hear for a second from the president of the Maricopa County Branch of the NAACP, Dr. Karen Hardin.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. As Mr. Bond said, my name is Karen Hardin. I'm the president of the Maricopa County Branch of the NAACP. I'd like to start off by making sure that you are aware that we have 9 different branches or 9 different offices of the NAACP throughout the state of Arizona. Oftentimes people are not aware and they just lump us all as one and just say NAACP. We are the Maricopa County Branch. That particular branch has been here in the Valley since 1919. The national NAACP was chartered in 1909. So the Maricopa County Branch celebrated the centennial last year. Mr. Charles Faniel resides over all of the branches throughout the state. And I believe we'll hear from him momentarily. Okay. As I said, we represent branch 1011. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Ken Turner, our treasurer, Mr. Garen Bond, our executive committee member, and Mr. Patrick Brown. Patrick is the chair of our social media committee. They have been the brains behind this, putting this on, okay? And I want to thank each one of you for taking time out on Saturday to join us. You know that this weekend, normally we would all be in the park celebrating Juneteenth with our family and friends. And at that time, we would be reflecting on the historical date of Juneteenth when our ancestors in Texas learned about the Emancipation Proclamation. Unfortunately, this weekend, while we're trying to celebrate Juneteenth, we have to endure, we as a people have to endure the insult of a political rally that is theoretical to the Juneteenth, the meaning of Juneteenth, just the opposite of Juneteenth. The event today in Tulsa, Oklahoma, it's a deep insult because you know that in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that's hallowed ground. That's where Black people were murdered in 1921. Therefore, today's forum is very important because we have to fortify ourselves with information and be motivated to stay strong as we fight two pandemics. We fight the pandemic of racism that continues and rages on, and we fight the pandemic of the COVID-19. As we discuss strategies of ways for men to cope and to survive today, please remember Ahmaud Arbery, killed while jogging, George Floyd, killed while pleading, I can't breathe. Mr. Brooks, who was killed trying to get a hamburger, shot in the back. So before we begin this dialogue today and the forum that is here to give us strength, let us all pause for 8 seconds of silence. The 8 seconds of silence will symbolize the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that George Floyd pleaded for his life. So if you'll join me in 8 seconds of silence, please. Thank you very much. Once again, I want to say thank you for joining the forum today. And we must continue to celebrate Juneteenth. We have to celebrate Juneteenth all the way through November, and we have to take our protests to the voting booth. But there's hope in all the sadness that we're enduring today. I think the hope is that this too shall pass. And when we get sick and tired of being sick and tired, we have to hold our heads high, keep marching, and we have to remember what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. told us years ago. He said, let us realize the arc of the moral universe. It's long, but it bends toward justice. So I pray for justice and thank you all for joining us today. And I turn it back to Mr. Bond and Mr. Faniel.
I thought you were going to be introducing
Mr. Faniel is our state conference president. He resides over all of the NAACP chapters here in the state of Arizona. And I serve under him and have served with him for many years in NAACP. So Mr. Faniel, welcome.
Well, top of the afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, and thank you for joining us.
Well, it's my pleasure. I wasn't sure because I've got this, I'm a baby, a baby boomer, and I'm not used to all this, this high tech stuff. So this is the first time I'm using this thing, and I am just excited. I'm like a kid in a candy store. First time. I never thought I'd be able to do this. But thanks be to God, I'm gonna be all right. Well,
see what the Maricopa County Branch does for you? We create all kind of innovation for you.
Bring the best out in me. I'm so excited. And first of all, Dr. Harden, I want to congratulate you and the Maricopa County Branch for putting on such an awesome program. And you all on the eve of Father's Day tomorrow, and as we celebrated yesterday, I believe it was something like 157 years ago. The Emancipation Proclamation was signed. I think it was about 157 years ago, I believe, somewhere in there. So we think we're free, but I don't believe we are free yet. After 157 years, we are not free. So, but like Jesse Jackson say, we're gonna keep hope alive, okay? And we've come a long way, but we've got a long way to go. So I want to commend Dr. Harden and the Maricopa County Branch on an outstanding job that you all continues to do. And we are so excited for you and the great work that you all are doing. So I want to shout out to Brother Ken, Brother Patrick, and Brother Garon, for coordinating this very awesome, worthwhile forum today. This Men's Empowerment Forum, mind, body, and spirit. Very outstanding topics when you talk about the mind and social changes and all of the important issues of facing men of color today. And it is a very timely discussion. You have a very capable panel of qualified individuals, and I want to thank them for their contribution and their service, and sharing their great ideas with us today on such very important topics. So again, I want to congratulate you and greetings to each and every one of you, and thank you for supporting the NAACP. Dr. Harden, thank you for inviting me to share these greetings. Thank you.
My pleasure, sir.
Well, the next thing that we're going to do before we actually get started in our program is we have a tribute. Since tomorrow is Father's Day and this is our men's empowerment, we have a tribute to fathers that we'd like to play next, and then we're going to get started with our panel.
My college career was over. I got offered a job to become a hospital administrator. 2-year program, $75,000 job. And right before I took the job, my daddy called me on the phone. Let me tell you about my daddy. When I was a little boy, my daddy would always pick me up. When he came home from work, he picked me up. When he saw me in the nursery after church, he picked me up. No matter how long he works, no matter how tired he was, my daddy would always pick me up. So when I had my kids, I would always pick up my kids. When I got home, sometimes I was tired. They have a bottle in one hand, and they just lifted up the other hand, and they knew what daddy was supposed to do. My job was to pick them up. This is a spiritual interaction. When you pick up a child, it is a spiritual transaction. When you pick up a child, you change their perspective. When you pick up a child, all of a sudden they can see the world the way you see it. I don't care what your children have done, there is nothing they can do for you to stop picking them up. Well, my daughter's a drug addict, I don't care, pick her up. My son messes up, I don't care, pick him up. I don't care. You pick them up. That is your job, mama. That is your job, daddy. That is your job, grandma. That is your job, granddad. Your number one job is to pick them up and change their perspective. My saddest day, one day, my daddy looked at me and he said, boy, you too big. I can't pick you up anymore. But when he couldn't pick me up physically, he would pick me up emotionally. He would pick me up spiritually. I had a great dad because he would always pick me up. He would always change my perspective. So my daddy called me on the phone, he asked me a question. He said, son, you had a tough year, what's next? I said, Dad, I'm gonna be a hospital administrator. He said, not bad, but let me ask you a question, son. Do you believe you're an NBA player? You can't outproduce your self-image, son. If you don't think so, go take the job. But if you believe you're an NBA player, go for it. My dad had the self-control and discipline and waited for my answer. And my answer was yes. You're right, Dad. I can't work the rest of my life. But playing in the NBA is a dream I've had ever since I was a little boy. He said, go for it, son. I limped back into my coach's office with a cast on my foot. I said, Coach, what do I need to do to play in the NBA? I asked that question 4 years in a row. With tears in his eyes, he said, son, when I recruited you, I heard you was a mama's boy. But I'm here to tell you, you just like your daddy. But what do I need to do to play in the NBA? He said, do two things, you can play in the NBA. Lose 20 pounds and shoot a three-point shot with range, you can play in the NBA. I think you should be a motivational speaker, son, but if you lose 20 pounds and shoot a three-point shot with range, you can play in the NBA. I lost 20 pounds, and every day I would shoot 500 shots a day, every single day. I got invited to training camp with the Dallas Mavericks, and not only did I make the team, I became the first ever undrafted rookie free agent in the history of the Dallas Mavericks to start opening night. Could you imagine what was going through my mind? I had not started a basketball game since high school. I got to the arena and they dimmed the lights and they put the spotlight right on me. Right through the spotlight, I saw my mom, my dad, and all my brothers and sisters. They surprised me at the game. Then I saw my dad. And I just pumped my fist. And he pumped his fist. And tears streamed down my face. Thank you for all those timeouts. Thank you for making sure I was always home when the streetlights came on. Thank you for making sure I could always hear your voice. Thank you for always changing my perspective. I know what it feels like to sit on a bench. I know what it feels like to get knocked down. I know what it feels like to have a hope and a dream, and nobody believes in it but a few people. Go for your dreams. Don't live life with regrets. Go for your dreams. Don't live life with regrets. Go for your dreams. Don't live life with regrets. I could always hear my daddy's voice. You have children, you have grandchildren. Can your children and grandchildren hear your voice? I could always hear my daddy's voice. He would say, go out, have a good time, play with your friends, but don't let the street lights beat you home. When I started my motivational speaking business, I called my daddy and said, Daddy, I'm gonna be a motivational speaker. He said, son, you think you can be successful at it? I said, yes, sir. You think you can make a lot of money at it? I said, yes, sir. He says, go for it. That's all my daddy said to me was go for it. So when I think about life, when I think about my goals, one thing he did for me as a father is to make sure I was always where I was supposed to be. He would have me write my goals down, and he would check in periodically, basically asking me, Walter, where are you supposed to be? Fathers, do you realize how powerful that is? If you ask that question of your kids, what are your goals? What are your future? Who do you want to be when you grow up? And every now and then check in by asking a simple question, where are you supposed to be? The bell is ringing, and I came to ring your bell and ask you the question, Father, where are you supposed to be? And ask that question to your children. Where are you supposed to be? And don't you quit until you're number one.
So I want you guys to know at no point of that whole speech did any water come in my eyes. I just got a little allergy problem. That's what was going on right here. Just want to let y'all know that. What a beautiful tribute to what fathers do. And even fathers that are no longer with us, they always change our perspective and they pick us up. So the first thing we want to do is we want to introduce our panelists. And the way we'll do this is I'll introduce the panelist and let him tell you, I'm looking, make sure there's no women so I don't get in trouble. Let him tell about themselves first, and then we'll get to the questions. We'll start with Dr. Robert Scott, cardiologist. So Dr. Scott, could you start us off and just tell us about you first?
Absolutely. I want to thank the organizers and the Maricopa County Association for allowing me to be part of this. I'm a transplant cardiologist at Mayo Clinic here in Arizona. So I deal with advanced heart failure, people who need heart transplants who've had them, and also deal with pulmonary hypertension. So I feel blessed and honored to be able to participate in that area. And I want to share some insight about cardiovascular disease as the program opens up further.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Scott. Next, we'll have Dr. Stephen Glaze, dentist.
Hi, how are you guys doing? Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here. Just want to let you know that I'm from Arizona. I'm a native of Arizona. I'm married. I have an almost 2-year-old son. Keeps me busy, keeps me up. That's why I look tired today. He got up at 5 in the morning. I'm a general dentist. I've been practicing in South Phoenix for about 4 years at Mountain Park Health Center. I'm also a member of REAP. It's a giving circle led by Black men through the Arizona Community Foundation. And I'm also the legislative chair of Arizona Academy of General Dentistry. So I'm very happy to be here, very happy to talk about dentistry. I think it's very important that we let our community know how important it is for us.
Okay, perfect. Next, we have Reverend Warren Stewart, Jr.
Hey everyone, I'm Warren Stewart Jr. I am a pastor, influencer, and activist. I've been very active in these protests over the last 3 weeks, actually going to our March on Washington today at 5:30 and leading this group of young people who are changing the world. And I'm the founder of Proactive Justice and the son of Dr. Warren A. Stewart Sr., who many of you all know. And so happy to be a part of that legacy and the family to continue on for Jesus and justice. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Reverend Stewart. And last but definitely not least, Dr. John McClain, clinical psychologist.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. John McCain. I am the program director currently at Davis Healthcare at the Lighthouse Project for high-risk teens. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist. My specialties are domestic violence and high-risk teens. So thank you so much for inviting me to this forum this morning at this critically important time in our history.
And Dr. McCain, I apologize for mispronouncing your name. I think I was thinking of those Die Hard movies when I said John McClane, but it's Dr. John McCain.
That's
okay.
correct. No problem.
Right,
I'm not mad at you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So we are going to have the treasurer for the Maricopa County Branch of the NAACP, Ken Turner, is going to, I'm going to turn it over to him as far as the kicking off the questions for the panelists.
Awesome. Thank you very much, G. Bond. Appreciate that. Well, guys, this is again great to have you here. I'm excited to be a part of it as well. And we're going to get the questions started because I know we have a lot of people waiting to hear from you guys. But I also want to tell the audience, if you're there, if you're listening, and you have a question for any of these experts, go ahead and type it into the chat. Our partner in crime, Patrick Brown, will collect those and we'll get your questions answered. We may not get to all of them because we got some pretty high-powered topics. We're going to start the questions off with Dr. Scott. Dr. Scott, cardiologist, so what do you see as the major health concern affecting African-American men today? And then what 5 things should we be changing immediately?
You know, that's a great question. One of the things that this current pandemic has uncovered is the fact that there's a big disparity in healthcare in people of color. And if you are African-American in the United States, the major cause of morbidity, mortality, and death is cardiovascular disease. And we suffer at it at an alarming rate. So, and that's happens for different reasons. I think one of the things we have to understand is high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, and stroke are some big things that affect us at a disproportionately high rate. And these are things that can be treated. These are things that are often undertreated. And I think the big things that we have to do as a people and individually is to take charge of our healthcare and to take charge of being in charge of how we treat ourselves and how we allow other people to treat us. It's important to know our numbers. When you go to see your healthcare providers, one of the big things is to know your numbers. What does that mean? What's your blood pressure and what should it be? What's your blood sugar and what should it be? What's your cholesterol and what should it be? And what's your weight and what should it be? And how are you going to work with your healthcare provider to get you to where you need to be? And also another important thing, another of those things is to move more. When I say move more, I mean exercise. Exercise has been known to reduce the morbidity and mortality of cardiovascular disease in every population. And it's something that none of us really do enough of. And that's something that we can all do, whether it's, you don't have to go out and join the gym, but just to exercise more, walk more, whatever that may be, but you have to do something. And the other thing is just not to smoke. That's something that hurts all of us, increases the incidence of cardiovascular disease, increases the incidence of cancer. So those are some of the things that we can do and the big things that we must do as a nation. But as I started with, this COVID situation is something that we're affected at a very alarming rate because we have so much cardiovascular disease within our population. So if we address that, some of those other things will also help to take care of themselves as well.
Awesome. Appreciate that. So I got down here, take care of your health or take charge of your health, know your numbers, exercise more, or do not smoke.
Those are the big ones. Those are the big ones.
Okay.
Knowing your numbers, I think, what should your blood pressure be? I mean, that can be confusing. 120/80, higher than that is elevated. And there should be a plan to get it down, and whether it's exercising more or modifying your diet. Whether you're diabetic or not, you should know what your blood sugars are, what your hemoglobin A1C. Those are things that we can impact on.
Awesome.
Cholesterol as well. These are all important things.
For our audience, I hope you guys are taking notes, because I am. I need all this information. I've got some numbers I don't know, so I've got to know those numbers and get back with my PCP. So thank you, sir. We'll be coming back to you. So I'm going to talk to Dr. Glaze here. Oftentimes when it comes to Black, for dentists in general, we don't really look at that area of medicine for information. And so, Dr. Glaze, I'm really pleased that you can give us some insights and raise our awareness about oral care. So what would you think is what is detrimental to us if we don't take care of ourselves in terms of oral care? And how do we reverse those trends?
Okay, so I would say that most men do know to go to their dentist for regular cleaning checkups, but and if they don't, they'll develop cavities. But I think we don't talk about how oral hygiene affects our overall health. I feel like that's a subject that we don't talk about a lot, and a lot of people don't even think about addressing. So, and I just want to give you out some research. So research shows that Black men are twice as likely to have cavities as compared to white men. And that's usually untreated decay. So untreated cavities. If the cavities are left untreated, you may have pain, but if you don't get treatment, you don't go to your doctor or your dentist, it will go from the bone to your bloodstream. Once it gets in your bloodstream, it's through all of those organs that you need, and it can cause serious health complications and also can lead to death. In addition to developing cavities, Black men have a lower 5-year oral cancer survival rate. So oral cancer is something that we don't talk a lot about in the Black community. Obviously, what Dr. Scott was talking about, smoking is a big factor of that. Drinking alcohol and other risky behaviors, you see that if you are doing those things, you can increase your oral cancer and your survival rate. And so I wanna just make sure that you treat your dental care and your oral health care just as much as you treat every aspect of your health. Some ways we prevent that and reverse those trends are by seeing your dentist regularly. If you have a treatment plan, if they tell you what you need to get done, go see them. Brush your teeth twice a day. I know you heard this before, but do it twice a day, 2 minutes, floss once a day. At night, diet's a big factor. If you're eating sugary foods, if you're drinking acidic foods, it's gonna make your teeth be really messed up. So sodas, things like that. And then also, I know a lot of times you see these trends on Facebook or Instagram or places like that about using charcoal toothpaste and oil pulling. Those things, I say be careful of. Talk to your healthcare provider about those things. Charcoal toothpaste in particular, it will just mess up your teeth, like thin it up, and then you're more likely to get cavities from that. And also with the oil pulling, it's supposed to help with bacteria, but the only thing that you can do with that is just brushing your teeth. So I think the main thing is just being aware and getting and making sure you treat every part of your body like it's your temple, everything, even your mouth, everything. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. And so my takeaway on that is, well, if you don't have a dentist that you're seeing regularly, is to get a dentist, go see that person, and then do the brushing your teeth and watch what you eat. I think I think we need to watch what we eat at all, no matter what it is, whether on oral care or physical care, physical health. So awesome. Appreciate that information. I want to switch over to Dr. McLean, and we're going to deal with some of the other weightier issues. Dr. McLean, how do we as a Black community, and Black men in particular, deal with the ongoing trauma of death by police?
Okay,
and let me just add another question. Can you offer some coping strategies for the audience?
This is a very challenging area. First thing I would say is, as a Black community, we have to stand in our own truth, whether it's individual or collectively. We cannot allow the narrative of our truth to be defined by folks who are outside our community. And the reality is that these problems with law enforcement have been going on for decades. And we've been saying and not being believed. Now we have videotapes and we're still not being believed. So the important thing is we have to stand on our own truth, because the truth will endure. And that is a critical piece of bringing the rest of the society together with us to work collectively towards this. So stand in your truth. Don't allow the narrative to be co-opted, because that's another thing too, where whether it's the protest of Kaepernick in the NFL or current protests, people want to talk about the complaint about protesting and the method of protesting, and not about what's being protested. So even if you're having a single conversation with a single person, my rule is that when people want to talk about protester behavior, I'll say, I'll talk to you about that. If you talk to me about what they are protesting, I will not allow those two things to be separated. We can kneel and you get upset. We can yell and you get upset. We can die and you get upset. Let's talk about what we're protesting. We can have another conversation about the way it's protested. So stand in our own truth. And that includes, by the way, not letting the narrative be distracted. One of the toughest things that we have to do, and people have disagreed with me on this, even in the Black community, we have to find a balance point between peaceful protests and righteous indignation. We cannot go below peaceful protest to resignation, despair. Then you get into depression, substance abuse, suicide. But we also cannot go on beyond righteous indignation to criminal conduct, because even those very few that do, they become the focus. And so we have to understand that we have righteous things to be indignant about, and we also will not be silent anymore. Okay? And if we stay in that zone, then we gain the collective hearts and mind of the society and the world, which is happening.
Exactly. So I have a question just to follow up. You said stand on our truth. Can you expound on that just for the audience to make sure that we all understand what that means?
There's a piece of this that I've even talked about. I've been called in front of predominantly white audiences, and I've said this. There may be no other population in the United States that is endorsing law and order than Black men. And the only exception may be white men who are being killed by, white women who are being killed by white men in domestic violence situations, where police will tell you that's the most dangerous threat, not Black men, but white men in domestic violence. So the truth is, we are not protesting law enforcement. We are protesting the absence of laws being enforced. We are not protesting police. We are protesting the abuse of powers by specific police officers.
Awesome.
And so don't let the narrative get co-opted. I had a colleague or in another forum that said, what do you think about people protesting police? I said, number one, we are not protesting police. We are protesting the failure of law enforcement, including the failure of enforced laws with police officers. That's the narrative. We are not supporting looters. Looters loot, protesters protest, okay? Don't confuse the two. So don't let the narrative be be co-opted. Another gentleman in another forum said, well, why are we protesting like this? It won't bring them back. And I said, listen, do you really think we're ignorant enough to think that the protest is to bring a dead person back? The protest is to prevent other dead bodies, okay? So this is our truth, and we can't let either the media or other folks outside trying to paint this as some kind of criminal activity or unjustified outrage. We cannot let people paint our truth by distracting it. There was no protest against the national anthem. It was a protest against Black men being killed in law enforcement situations. So it's not the anthem. It's not the looters. It's not kneeling, okay? We're protesting a decade-long battle with Black men and women, and brown men too, who are in situations where it was undisclosed and unknown, lost their lives for not breaking the law. That's what we're protesting.
Awesome. And thank you for clarifying that. That's really good. Awesome. Reverend Stewart, you talked about you're heading to DC, is that right?
No, we're doing a march on Washington. The name is commemorative of what happened in DC. That's what we're calling it because it's actually on Washington today. And it's led by faith leaders because faith leaders haven't really joined together with the other movements. And so I wanted to bring everyone together today.
Okay, awesome. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you to share is the church has always been the cornerstone of our community. And how has Black Lives Matter impacted church conversations? And how do you see us taking that and what what we normally do in the church and moving us forward?
Yeah, thank you for that question. The church has always been the epicenter of all these civil rights movements and social movements. We found our identity in the church historically, politically, in math and science and the arts and engineering. That's the only place we had at times during segregation. And when I've toured all the national African American museums, the church was at the epicenter of it after slavery. So a lot of people don't want to, respect that history. They don't know it. These young people don't know it. And so even me going out today, some of these young people are like, where's the church at? Where are the faith leaders? And, Jesus didn't have a building. He went to the people. And so I had a church for 10 years. I've been in ministry 22 years, I think it is this year. But the more I read the Bible as a young person, I'm like, Jesus did stuff a lot differently and went to the people. And when you see Dr. King and Jesse and Andrew Young and Ralph Abernathy and countless others, Jewish priests, rabbis, and Catholic priests, and all these people join in and now, women in ministry, it's amazing to see that. Young people just don't know their history. And so I feel that I am a bridge from the older generation who poured into me to bring them up and give them a sense of identity, to say, like, don't disregard the church because you're out here because the church set the tone for this. And Black Lives Matter, I am for Black Lives Matter. The platform of Black Lives Matter, I don't agree with. And people may get mad for me, but when you go on there, I believe in the movement for Black lives. Their platform is different, but the Black Lives Matter platform is void of male and men leadership. And that is a problem for me. And I don't have a problem saying that. I was at a forum at ASU, I think last year sometime, and they talked about every other issue besides Black men. And I was upset and I raised my voice and I said, we know our Black queens and our women. We respect them and regard them, but we live in a society where Black men are demoralized, demonized, emasculated, effeminized, and all those things. And so we have to be able to, and nothing against preference and gender and all that stuff. And we celebrate everyone, but there has to be a male voice that's at the table, that's strong enough to support everyone, but not afraid and bold enough to stand on his manhood and have some little Black boys look up to. And so, you know, that's where I am, and that's the kind of people I had around me to help shape me. So I just want to do that for the next generation.
Awesome, awesome. Great question. I have a question from the audience here.
Ken, before we did the question from the audience, we have another distinguished guest that is part of helping us get this word out to people. Prentice Moore, president of the 100 Black Men, is on. And Prentice, could you please give us a couple of words, introduction, that kind of thing of your organization as far as being a part of this forum?
Absolutely, thank you. I was actually enjoying everything that was going on. This is great discussion that's happening right now. Happy Father's Day to everyone, men and women. We all know in our community, mothers have been just as much as in the role of fathers as our actual men. So I appreciate each and every one. I trust everyone had a blessed and joyous Juneteenth. I am Prentice Moore, and I am the president of the local chapter of the 100 Black Men of America. Our chapter is here in Phoenix, Arizona. We are men from various walks of life and professions who work to improve the quality of life for African Americans and people of color in our communities through various paths such as youth mentoring, advocacy, resources, and among others. And we are excited to be a part of this today because this fits right into our pillars of the 100 Black Men of Phoenix, and that's leadership, education, health and wellness, and economic empowerment. We're discussing all of this today, and this is just outstanding. And the panel that we have on board, you know, these are just esteemed gentlemen, and you've already heard how passionate they are about what they do. So we are excited about this. Very much appreciative to Dr. Hardin and everyone of the Maricopa County Branch of the NAACP for bringing us on board to be a partner in this amazing and important event. And if anyone has questions about the 100 Black Men of Phoenix, you can reach out to me. You can post in something in the chat, or you can go to the 100blackmenoffphoenix.com. But I am excited about the discussion here, and let's continue. This is beautiful. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Thanks, Garrett.
You're welcome.
One question that came up was, as Black fathers, how do we address or care for our sons' mental health in this environment? You know, we just saw the Father's Day tribute. So how do we address that? I'm going to direct that to Dr. McCain.
Sure, appreciate that. This is another matter of living in our truth too. There's misinformation about the role of Black men with their sons. There's a very critical CDC report that was put out. It says, yes, there is a higher incidence of single mothers with Black children. But here's what it also says. It says that Black fathers, when they are not living with their kids, are 3 times more likely to be involved in their development and growth on a monthly basis. They are more likely to be committed and understand the importance of financial support. And by the way, there are 3 times more single mothers of white children raising single kids. So it simply is not true that Black fathers are not involved with their children. That's a misconception. And so we have to understand there are different ways other than the nuclear model of, you know, homes with both parents there. We have grandparents involved with their kids, grandfathers involved with their kids, but the idea that Black men are not involved with their children is simply not true. And so we have to, and this is something I think as a Black community we have bought. And I think that's why, and I agree with you, you know, 100% about what you said about Black Lives Matter. How can you have something like that where Black men are not involved? Okay? That is not okay. And I think to some extent, it's because even as the Black community, we have bought, even as Black men, we have bought that notion that Black men are failing their children. which is simply not true. And by the way, Reverend Stewart, I got to tell you, I'm so happy to see the second generation of you. I can't even tell you, knowing that your father and you're carrying that on. That's cool. It also speaks to another truth. Okay, Black lives matter, and people say all lives matter. What's the difference? And my thing is, that's true, but why do you have to say it here? If Dr. Scott was holding a conference on cardiovascular disease and men dying, I wouldn't go in there and say, but you know what? Cancer matters too. We all understand cancer is deadly. We understand cardiovascular, but why you got to bring it up here? Because you're dismissing, the forum, the appropriate forum for this. And that's another matter of owning truth. Nobody is saying blue lives don't matter. My sister is a cop in St. Louis, okay? So nobody is saying that. So own the truth. And as fathers, we have to sit and talk with, I had a 2-hour conversation with my 14-year-old son yesterday. Because we're talking about history, but we have to explain it to them outside the rhetoric, outside the extremes. And that's where the history comes in of the Black community. And we also have to make sure that as fathers, we're coaching our children on their stress and emotional health. Because Dr. Scott already pointed out, there's an intimate connection between stress and cardiovascular disease, cardiopulmonary disease, substance abuse. We have to help our young men, our young boys as Black men, understand how to handle stress and to seek help, because Black men are less likely to seek help for mental health issues than any other population, major population in the United States. So we have to demystify. When things are stressful, it's okay for you to be stressed. It's okay for you to get help.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Welcome.
I think you're right. I mean, I've always had a certain I've always felt some kind of way whenever it came to me, mental health. Somebody suggested maybe you need counseling, and we just blow it off. We don't seek counseling. So great response. Also, there's another question that was out there. It was, is as Black, why does let me just see if I can read it here. I think it's pretty straightforward, but I mean, here's the question that asks, why does the majority often blame the victims? And I'm going to ask Dr. Scott to give us his interpretation of that question.
I was sitting here thinking about the last two speakers, and I feel like I'm a kindred spirit of Dr. McCain and Dr. Glazer, because I'm not a psychiatrist, but so much of what I see as a heart failure specialist comes down to people not dealing with issues and not dealing with depression and not dealing with anxiety. And the same thing with pastoral care and ministers. You see so much much mental illness, so much in the way of anxiety and depression in our people. And as you had mentioned, Ken, people just don't want to say they need help. They look at, particularly men of color, we think it's a sign of weakness to say, I need a therapist, I need a counselor, I need to talk to someone, and it unravels in how you take care of yourself.
Right.
So much what I see as a physician, half of all the disease that I see, and I deal with heart failure, half of all that I see is lifestyle related, meaning that is really preventable for the most part, or at least you can attenuate or reduce how significant or how severe it approaches you by taking medications, by leading a healthier lifestyle. And unfortunately, people are just not dealing with the stress and anxiety of their lives, and things get much worse in that regard. I think one of the things about, blaming the victim, I think people don't, and often the majority, and I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, and that was, predominantly white environment, went to white high schools, went to an all Black grade school, but went to a predominantly white high school. And, people oftentimes, well, I'm not racist. Okay, they may say I'm not racist, but they don't want to hear about racial issues and problem because I'm not that guy. That's not me. I got Black friends. I have, I'm not like those people who wear the white hoods and all that. Well, But if you don't want to talk about these issues, and you have access to people I don't have access to, you may be in these little groups where people are talking about, yeah, I don't like that guy, or you may be in this little secret meeting. I don't want to hire so and so because he's just not. We're not comfortable around him or her because of how they wear their hair or the things they say. All these little conversations that had that we may not be privy to. So, I think there's such an interaction or interplay with mental health and with physical health that you just can't separate the two. And then I mentioned Dr. Glazer because, again, I'm a heart failure person, and people that I see need transplants or they need to have heart pumps placed. People neglect the heck out of their mouths until the teeth are literally falling out, or until they can't close it, or until they can't bite without the teeth moving. And people they don't view dental health, oral health as a real thing. And oftentimes, we go through someone who has end-stage heart disease, and then we have to stop because we got to find a dentist because they haven't been since in high school. I mean, or they haven't been in years until something hurts or is severely painful or swollen. So we often, we have this mentality, particularly men, we have this mentality that we'll tough it out until the very end. We may have insurance, we just don't always want to deal with those things. And, I know, I just think you can look at these things separately, but they're all so interrelated as I see these things.
Oh, thank you for that. Awesome. Just to piggyback on that, Dr. Glaze, is that what you're seeing as well?
Yeah, so I work in a public health facility, so I see a lot of patients on access, Medicaid, Medicare. I work for patients that can't afford your normal dental care, right? And so a lot of times what we see from Dr. Scott, our cardiologists alike, is we need a clearance. They need a clearance from us. Basically what that means is at this point, they let their teeth go so bad where we have to get rid of all their teeth so they can get their treatment. So they have to get a heart transplant or heart surgery, whatever needs to be done by Dr. Scott or other cardiologists. And we got to get rid of all their teeth before they can do this. We have a time limit where we can do this, and they have to make sure that we did everything that we can so that when Dr. Scott gets the patient, he won't be at risk to get this transplant done.
Wow.
So it's serious. It gets to the point where it's life or death situation. And so we got to get that patient back multiple times to just get those teeth out. And then on top of that, the psychological factor, and I don't know if Dr. McCain ever deals with patients that have teeth that may not look the greatest, the aesthetics and things like that. The self-esteem factor for that, like think about trying to go for a job and your teeth, they don't look great. People are not going to hire you because the second thing they look at is, besides your face and your appearance, is your smile. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. And so that patient that needs that transplant, they're going to need dentures too, just so they can be able to eat, they can function, they can, still function as a human being. And then sometimes it's a factor of, well, we just got to get these teeth out, and now they can't really chew the food they like to eat and things like that. So that depresses you too. So there's a lot of psychological factors that dentistry and oral health has on a person too. So, yeah.
I never heard that before, so that's great information. That's unbelievable. I wanted to touch with back to Reverend Stewart here, and that is on. Let's see, the issue of what you're that new generation, and what are you seeing? You and Dr. Glazers, both of them are, and that's why we're definitely glad to have you. So, but what do you see, particularly when it comes to Black men? Are young Black men? Are they being more open to you with respect to some of their mental health needs and psychological health needs, or not at all?
Yeah, I think they are. Like I have a podcast called Not For Real, NAH For Real, and I talk about that. I talk about my journey that you can have Jesus and a therapist. You can have prayer and prescriptions. So I pastored people with mental health issues. I saw my father pastor people with mental health issues, and you can make it religious if you want to, but some people just need to see a therapist, and some people need to be on medication. And you wonder, it's like, why can't I get through to them? And that's okay. And I heard it's probably risen now, but probably about 7 years ago, I heard a statistic that was 35% of people in church had mental health issues.
Wow.
And so we have to deal with that. I'm doing a conference in Jamaica next year for Social Roots, and they also are letting me speak on that as well. And a lot of people are moving into that, because the Bible says, love the Lord with all your heart, mind, body, and strength. And those are things that we cannot overlook. We can't just love God with our heart and just sing to him. We have to love him with our mind. And the Bible talks about the mind a lot, and we've somewhat glanced over that. But when it comes to young people, you have to be an example. You have to model it for them. They don't just take talk. You have to be impeccable with your word. And so that's why I model it, because I didn't grow up like that. I have people in my family that have mental health issues, and they don't want to get on medicine. They want to think they can pray it away. And I'm like, no, you're not going to pray it away. You need to go see somebody to get some chemical balance in your life. And it's okay. Like, it's okay to say, you know, I've had to take this prescription just to take the edge off. I have been very depressed, you know, over the years, pastoring. You taking on so many people's issues, absorbing that. You have to have a release. I go to the gym, or I'm, you know, pray, meditate, do music, whatever it is, art. And so you have to model it. This generation is not about lip service. They're about action. And so, and a lot of them need it. You know, I've been talking to a lot of the protesters. I'm like, you guys need a rest day. You've been going hard every day for 3 weeks straight, and you will burn out. And then another thing, people also burn out when they're not living in their passion. And so, and if you don't find that flow in your life and find out that self-discovery and self-awareness, you will continue to hit and miss in life and have unfulfilled dreams and be very frustrated. But like I said again, this generation needs to see action, no more lip service.
Awesome. Thank you. I agree wholeheartedly. So gentlemen, what happens when the cameras go off and the police then turn the cameras off? You know, how do we hold them accountable? And so I'd like for everybody to kind of weigh in on the whole piece about police, and I like what Dr. McLean said about stand on our truth. So how do we hold the police accountable? And since we got you already, Reverend Stewart, let you start off.
How do we hold them accountable? We need to push. Well, we have the Civilian Review Board, and that was cute that they passed it. I suggested that last year when that viral video went crazy, but we need subpoena power and prosecuting power on that board. Otherwise, one of my friends said, it's just a Yelp review. So until we have power like that in the community and talk about community policing, defunding and demilitarizing the police, then we really won't see any progress. I mean, literally, the police were in riot gear the other day. The group that I've been protesting with have not picked up a stone, and they are ready to beat us down, bringing the sound cannons out to you know, make these waves and these frequencies paralyze us so we can't hear. Like these are the things that we have to do. Yeah, it's a complex thing. When it comes to police, the union is the problem. We have a Black chief. I've known her for many years, known her since I was a child, known her mother, her brothers. The union ties her hands. And if we're going to hold police accountable, they have to hold each other accountable. And the best way to do that, I would say, is to, when a police officer is involved in a shooting, not only should they be fired, but the money in the pension, not just the officer's pension, but the entire pension should be taken out for the family and their well-being, because that life was lost. We didn't get justice for Romaine Brisbane, for Michelle Cusseau, for Muhammad, for Deion Johnson, and countless others in Phoenix, Arizona. So until we hurt them in their pension, they really won't feel like they're accountable. They can turn cameras off, they can have cameras on, whatever it is, and still get away with it. There was legislation that we fought years ago, SB 1445, that was going to conceal the name and the identity of the officer for 90 days for a cooling off period, so there wouldn't be protests like there are now. So, and somehow when police involved shootings in Arizona happen, we don't get the national attention like every other city gets or state. It's just amazing how we can keep this on the hush, and then we find out and it still doesn't get the traction. So until the union is held accountable, I don't think we're going to see much progress.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Wow. Dr. Glaze, any comments on that?
I'm gonna say Reverend Stewart hit it on head on. He hit everything head on. You have to advocate on behalf of yourself and your community. I believe one of the major things why I'm a member of REAP is because we get to use monetary funds. We get to give money for laws, legislation. We get to have power in what people do, because if you bring money to the table, people will listen. For instance, we just had law put in place for abolishing private prison. That's a thing. It's just systematic racism in that itself when you're talking about locking up minorities that are most likely to go to jail for drug cases, right? You know, so we're trying to make it be known like, hey, we want you to legislate and change things and change how things are going. And I think advocacy is a major thing. Of course, this is not my field, but I know like if you want change, you have to be out there and you have to get knowledge and wisdom about what's going on and the issues at hand, and figure out how can you turn that around for your community and for yourself and for your family and things like that.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And to Dr. Scott, any comments?
You know, it's interesting. There was a really nice piece called Eyes on the Prize that came out about 30 years ago. And I think it was actually commissioned by the Public Health Services. And it just looked at these issues going back to 1930 and 40 with Emmett Till and coming forward until the 1970s and 80s. And you go back and it's like you can change the names and you can change the specifics of the narrative, but the story is still the same over and over again. And these are issues we've been dealing with for the last 50 years. Something has to change, as everybody has said. I think part of it is the immunity that people are given when they're police officers. When something happens, there's like this instant immunity until charges are brought or until things are laid out. And I agree with Reverend Stewart. Start up front. Just say no. You're not getting your pension when you're convicted of killing someone or murdering someone. We have to look at each of these cases individually. We have to get to the point where open season on people of color is not an acceptable thing. You know, our colleagues are, you know, of other races, they have issues as well, but they don't deal with the police adversely as we do. They don't have the same degree of incarceration. They don't have the same degree of violent action that happen with random police stops that we have to. You know, as a Black father, my major job is keeping my son from getting killed by the police, which sounds crazy. We were in an organization called Jack and Jill when my son was younger. He's 22 now. And we would have a forum which taught kids how to deal with traffic stops, because you don't want your son or daughter to get killed over some BS with a routine traffic stop. So it just starts with trying to enforce information to our kids, and it starts with changing how police are dealt with when they deal with communities of color.
Awesome.
Now, as our forum progresses, obviously in this politically charged environment, we want to talk about those law enforcement issues, the legislation issues, the change issues, those kind of things. And we are going to do that as Black men and our different organizations we are. But today, I want to try to steer us back to one of the things with the oral health. We noticed that in schools, the schools give the children sugary drinks, sugary food, sugary stuff, and don't bring a regular routine to help facilitate better oral health. And I know that we want to talk about all this police stuff, and I'm an ex-police officer. Trust me, I love Jerry Williams because she is really trying hard to bring the community back into policing. But if we can stay on this medical, the things that we're doing with the medical, spiritual, mental health of our people, because if we keep talking about this police thing, we'll mess around and get a video riot going on in here with all these black men. Let's see if we can get this going to this. So, Dr. Glaze, can you help me out?
I don't want to jump in too much, but it's interesting because one of the things that people have said about the whole COVID situation is that it's what we call in medicine a sentinel event. By that I mean you go to a hospital to have your appendix out and someone removes your leg, or are you going to have your right knee worked on and they work on your left knee? Those are sentinel events because something very bad has happened. Someone dropped the ball majorly. And then this whole COVID situation where you've had, and it wasn't pointed out initially, but there's been a desperate or a much more significant number of people of color being diagnosed with COVID, dying from COVID than the general population, much more so than you would ever imagine. And the reason is because our level of healthcare is so much worse than the general population. And people who are at risk, who have a higher incidence of cardiovascular disease, hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol, they get this disease at a higher rate. And it underlies or opens up the reality that if you're a person of color, your degree of healthcare is inferior to the general population. So, it sort of bleeds into everything that we do. Race matters. I mean, racism is an issue. It's not just race, it's racism because people are not given the same access to healthcare. And we talked about blaming the victim. One thing that I've heard providers or physicians say, oh, they need to eat healthier. Okay, what if the closest grocery store is 7-Eleven? You live in inner city and closest, you don't see a whole lot of fresh fruit and vegetables in 7-Eleven compared to Fry's or Bashas'. I mean, it's not always as simple as saying they need to eat healthier. And if you haven't checked, terrible food is cheap. Good food is expensive.
Right.
And those are things that people of color have to deal with. So I understand perfectly what you're saying about keeping emphasis, Garen, on the factors that we have to deal with health and all that. But there is an interplay between all these things, in my opinion.
I agree 100%.
Go ahead.
I'll tag on to the oral health for schools. We're talking about that. And I do agree with Dr. Scott when it talks about the community and the options they have as far as food goes, when it comes to their paycheck and the things that they have to do on those matters. I would say one of the major things is we can't rely so much on the school. It's easy to say we can't rely so much on the school to feed our kids. Like, I feel like we have to take some measures in making sure that our kids get the nutrition that they need. And what I mean by that, where I work, I know they make sure that the public gets food for vegetable drives, truck drives, farmers market, but it's the money factor, it's the monetary things that make it an issue. And I think when it comes to like the sugary foods and things like that, it's another thing for advocating. It's another thing for legislation. It's like we have to let them know these are not what we want our kids to eat, but it's a money thing. So it's major. It's bigger than just saying don't eat those foods. We have to talk to the school. We have to be on the school boards and find out why are these foods being the way they are. We have to ask those questions and make sure that those things get changed and why they get changed, and not just complain about the issue, but also bring solutions to the fact that this food that the kids are getting is not helping their health. And then once we get understanding, we can make the decisions to make the change within our own houses, within our own community, and let them know, hey, let's eat like this instead of like that. It's just a big issue. We could talk forever about that subject and how we infiltrate and how we change those things, but I would say it starts with education, one, and it starts with knowing like how to get the better nutrition.
Good, thanks. I had a question to you, Dr. Glaze, on what's available, what resources are available to low income and middle class working folks if they don't have dental insurance?
So I'm glad you asked that, because that's one of my big things. Access to care is a big issue. Right now, if you have Medicaid, Medicare, or access, you can get treatment from a medical provider in a public health facility, right? They will usually cover that at low cost to free. You may even get a slider scale where you'll pay a certain amount of fee based on the poverty line, so where you stand as far as your income goes, based on your family.
Okay.
And you may just get it free if you're on access. So if you're under 21 and you're still on access, you can get dental care for free in a public health facility. Okay. But if you're over 21, that's when the issue happens. You don't get preventative services done like fillings, cleanings, your regular checkups. You don't get that. The government's not going to cover that. The only thing that they will cover is emergency treatment. Emergency treatment is when you come to see me, you're in pain, you're swelling, and now I have to go to extreme causes where I have to take your teeth out, basically. Or I may be able to get you a root canal or something to try to save your tooth, but you only get $1,000 worth to cover that. If you're on Medicare or Medicaid, you may get $3,000 or $4,000 to cover that. This just happened. Like, this just changed. This is kind of new, actually, that they're doing this. And so the biggest thing and how do we change those is we got to advocate on that. And that's why we're on legislative chair. That's why I'm on legislative chair, because I want to make sure that we get those things changed and we can get healthcare to everyone. Before COVID-19, we're in the process of getting access for people over the age of 21 to get preventative services. Right now, it got halted a little bit, but we're gonna keep making those things happen. So that's how we make those changes, and we need people to be like, okay, I want help for myself, so I'm gonna make sure I know what's going on and how to get those things done. And so, yeah, it's public health facilities. There's resources out to get treatment done, but you just won't get that quality care just because you don't have the money. It's horrible, but it's one of those things we have to deal with.
Awesome, thanks. Got a question for you guys. Most of you guys are in practice. Are you guys taking any clients right now? Go ahead, Dr. Glaze.
So like I just explained to you, where I work in a public health facility. So right now we're not accepting new adult patients for dental services, but we do accept kids. But if you do need a dentist and you need services, I do know a few Black dentists out here that will accept you, and just hit me up. I'll send out my email. You guys can contact me, and I'll make it happen.
Awesome. How about you, Dr. McLean?
Yes, and even in spite of the fact that we're still in this pandemic, my team is working full-time on virtual technologies. We're accepting new clients. I get constant referrals of clients within the Black community because the people that know our practice at Bayless Healthcare know I have 3 master's level therapists on my team. So we have to have a team that represents the community. So yes, we are accepting clients at this present time. Adults, children, teens, we are accepting clients.
Okay, so definitely want to get your information in the chat so we can share that with the audience. And Dr. Scott?
Yes, I currently am in practice. As I said, I'm at Mayo Clinic. I do advanced heart failure, pulmonary hypertension, transplantation. So I have patients who are on various types of insurance. We do procedures in people who have access. There are some limitations with things, but certainly if you're on access, we do transplant people. We put heart pumps in people as a bridge towards advanced therapy. So we're, there's always some limitations here and there, but for the most part, we take most programs, and we're happy to get referrals.
Okay.
We did a lot of virtual when the initial surge hit. We did a lot of virtual stuff, as Dr. McCain had sort of pointed out. We still do a little bit of virtual, but mainly do a lot of hands-on direct patient contact. If you come from our hospital, you got to wear a mask, And at some point, I want to open up the mask thing and get Dr. McCain's view on why people don't feel like they need to wear masks. But I'll wait and see how things go before I jump into that one.
No, let's go ahead. Let's take it there.
Well, I mean, listen, the reality is this disease is, and I'm not a COVID expert, but I see it and I deal with it. But there are certain populations that are higher risk. People, say over the age of 60 with underlying, medical issues. are at greater risk than the general population. But obviously it can affect anyone, and it makes sense to wear a mask. But what I notice when I go out in public, and I'll look around, and I'm the only one oftentimes who's wearing a mask. Myself,
Yeah.
and whoever works in that store. Other than that, the other people are walking around like they ain't heard of COVID. I mean, and if someone says something to them, they're ready to fight. It's my right not to wear a mask and to be stupid. So it's just, and I don't know, maybe this is I don't want to call it a death wish. I don't want to call it arrogance. I want to call it white privilege. I don't know what you want to call it, because sometimes some of us too don't wear masks. But I notice it more in the majority population, and I notice there's almost a disdain, like I don't have to wear it because I don't want to, and I'm like, well, I can't understand that. So is it a psychiatric thing? Is it a privilege thing? Is it a lack of spirituality? I don't know how you want to frame it. But there's several ways to look at it. I'm interested to hear the thoughts of some of the other panelists and what they think about that.
Go ahead, Dr.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that, because it speaks, there is a psychological piece to this. And it has to do with the old enemy of denial. That it's almost as if you don't acknowledge it happening, then it's not happening. But one of the leading world experts in stress, Bessel van der Kolk, says the body keeps score, which means that if you don't handle your stress, I talked about staying in truth, but you also have to live in truth. If you don't handle the stress and you hold it in, you're not really holding anything in. It just comes out another way. It comes out in hypertension. It comes out in heart disease. It comes out in alcoholism. It comes out in violence, explosive temper. And you have people that are so frightened to admit the truth that they simply deny it. I mean, I've seen the same thing. I'm aware of my mask. All my family wears a mask. And I think what you're looking at is disdain. It's you're poking their insecurities and fears. They're saying, hey, nothing to worry about. They're looking at you and you're saying, well, there's something for you to worry about. And so it's a combination, I think, of fear and a refusal to admit vulnerability. It's the same reason why people don't come to get help in psychiatric and psychological situations. They're afraid to admit vulnerability, And even for you, Mr. Bond, it's okay if you have tears in your eyes. You don't have to clean asthma, okay? See, it comes out in little teeny ways. We are human beings, and we are designed to have emotions. We are designed to convey those emotions. It's how we connect with each other. And so I think it's really denial of fear that says, you know what? There's a greater force bigger than you. And COVID is bigger than you. And it's affecting all people, all races, and the most vulnerable. And Dr. Scott is right. Pre-existing conditions among the Black community make us more susceptible because we are not taking care of our medical health. So these things are all tied together. So I'm real grateful you have such a diverse collection of experts here that can show us that you can't deny any one of these situations, behavioral, spiritual, medical, psychological, and not have it affect the other pieces. Our body keeps score even when we don't.
Wow. Great. Any other panelists want to jump in on that? Okay, I got another COVID question here, is about gloves. And I guess, Dr. Scott, we're gonna go to you first. Are they still relevant under COVID or no?
I think gloves are fine, but gloves are meant to be put on. You do what you need. You go into the store, you do your activities, then you take them off. You shouldn't keep gloves on all day long with the feeling like they're going to armor you and protect you from everything. Gloves get extremely nasty and dirty, and washing your hands is better than washing your hands with gloves on. So I think you put the gloves on before you go into the store, before you do an activity of some sort, and then when you're done, you take the gloves off, and then you put your hand sanitizer on. But just wearing gloves all day long, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Or wearing for prolonged periods of time and acting like they're going to protect you. They actually carry germs too. So they're not meant to just be kept on all day long, and that's going to just automatically protect you. For frequent hand washing, and wearing a mask are two of the most effective ways to reduce the spread of this virus.
You know, I've seen people driving with masks on, and I've been trying to get that figured out.
I don't quite understand that part either. Driving with masks, and again, I think it's just lack of understanding. But I'd rather see that than people going to a store or going to a religious service and not have a mask on. You know, which I've seen happen.
Great. Garen, you have any other question?
I was just gonna chime in and tell Dr. McCain I'm gonna steal that the body keeps score, because we probably don't really think about that in our everyday interactions about the things that we're ignoring, because it will come back one way or another. I saw one thing on here that I didn't know, and Reverend Stewart, somebody put a question on about being the Bible saying that we're supposed to turn the other cheek, love our enemies, that kind of thing. And they want to know how do we justify that and explain that to people when we're fighting back injustice?
Yeah, that's great. I have two cheeks. So when I run out of cheeks, I've run out of my spiritual resources. So,
I like that.
And,
okay, I'm stealing that one too. Okay.
Peter carried a sword, and the disciples were packing. And if when people really read the Bible, Jesus was okay with you carrying a sword. Now, he didn't want you cutting people's ears off like Peter did, but he had no problem with us carrying that. Yeah, I have two cheeks, and if, for instance, let me say this: my partner, my woman, was yesterday. She was at Tempe Marketplace, and a white woman pulled a gun out on her because she didn't move out of the way when she was trying to drive by and hit her. Her video is going viral right now. Her name is Roisha Banks, and I had just hung up the phone with her, and it happened. So in that moment, if I was there, I wouldn't go into prayer. I wouldn't be spiritual. I would move into the natural and handle her in a natural way. Now, I would have to forgive her later on, and be spiritual. But yeah, we are going to seek justice for this older white woman who pulled a gun out on her, and a white man had to jump in front of her in order for her not to be killed. So she could have become a hashtag, and we would have had to say her name. And so thank God for this white man who jumped in, this young white boy that jumped in front of her while this white woman was driving around in her car waving a gun at her. So listen, people say about me, I'm like a blend of Martin and Malcolm. I don't have a problem with being, armed, spiritually and naturally. I think it's a great balance. I believe in balance. So, and when situations like this and you get followed home and my dad has been threatened to be killed. I've been threatened to be killed. People are crazy out here. And I ain't turning cheeks when people shooting at me that have wickedness and racist tendencies to kill Black people just because you won't move out of their way. So that's the world we live in nowadays. So if that messes with your theology, take it up with Jesus, read the scriptures again.
Well, Reverend Stewart, first of all, how's your wife doing after that trauma?
Well, she's not my wife yet, but she's okay. She's even on the Zoom, I heard her crying and almost got up and left. So it has been very traumatic. And, her video is going viral. It's like at 80,000 views right now. She just told her story. She had her head wrap on. She had a non-conforming Black woman shirt on, looked very ethnic. And this white woman saw was her Black skin, and wanted to run her over with the car. And when she couldn't do that, she pulled her gun out.
Wow.
So my fight for justice got real personal yesterday.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
And
Yeah.
thank
Go ahead, Aaron.
you for that answer. I'm just saying thank you for that answer
Yeah.
because people need to understand that we have to believe in ourselves and our ability to protect ourselves in this environment. We're going to peacefully protest, but we're not going to let somebody kill us because they don't like the way we look.
That's right.
I'm 100%
That's right.
with that.
That's
Okay.
right. That's right.
And Martin Luther King had guns, and nobody wants to talk about that. He was nonviolent. See, you can be nonviolent, but not have a peaceful protest. So nonviolent means I'm not going to break nothing or kill anyone, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to disturb the peace so you don't hear us. We're not going to loot or anything like that. But that doesn't mean we can't defend ourselves because if crazy, it's guns don't kill people. Crazy people with guns kill people. Tucker said that in Money Talks. So we don't even have mental health evaluations for people who can get guns, first of all. So let's just talk about that. There's legislation, and the Black Panthers were armed. And here's what Minister Farrakhan said: if white people are so scared of us that if we got in positions of power like them, they think we would do the same thing to them. Black Panthers never killed anyone. Malcolm X never had to use his gun by any means necessary. They shot a nonviolent and a not so nonviolent activist, and Medgar Evers. They killed Martin Luther King's mother in church, and Charlottesville. I mean, so when I started my church, my deacons had guns on the front row. I don't play. Like I grew up privileged, but when I became an adult, I moved to South Phoenix, and that changed my whole little silver spoon life. And not only our people would come against you, but white people too. So we have the right to bear arms, and you best believe I'm getting some.
Okay. All right. I heard you.
Well, you answered a question that baffled me, just as being prior law enforcement and always being armed, is how somebody can walk into a room with over 100 people there, start shooting people, and nobody's there to defend it. Nobody's there to do something about it because they don't believe they need to have a weapon. We're in the United States of America, and we only have 5% of the population, but we got 25% of people that's in prison, and we have more guns per capita than any other place on the planet. So if you want to be a good victim, stay unarmed. If you want a chance to survive, then you need to level the playing field. I don't know who said this. I don't know where it came from, but they said God made man and Smith and Wesson made them equal.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Right.
But don't you think that there's a factor of intimidation? This woman, when she came after your fiance, she wanted to try and intimidate her, so she showed a gun. And I think part of what some of the Black Lives Matters protesters, they came across groups of whites who would they didn't shoot them. They had their arms and they had them readily visible to try and say, yeah, we know you're here, we know you're marching, but we can still kill you if we want to. And the police were there. Police weren't upset about the fact that these folks were they had their Second Amendment rights. They were all packing and ready. But I think oftentimes these things aren't by accident. They're meant to intimidate us. And they probably are working to a certain degree. I don't know. I mean, we don't tell our kids, we can tell our kids, if you legally can, get a firearm and wear it in plain sight. And I think what that usually will do is draw attention to them. As I think Garen was saying that, yeah, if you're going to have a gun, even a legal firearm, you may not necessarily want to just carry it out in the open. I mean, because you may draw attention to yourself. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know that guns are meant to intimidate, and they try to intimidate people of color.
Yep.
One of the points I wanted to talk about too, Reverend Stewart, I'm with you 100% on that. And I had to come around because my brother is one of those rarest breeds who is a Black Republican, but true conservative. And he is a 30-year veteran of the Navy. He has an ensemble of weapons, including an AR-15. And he said that he's trained and uses on his military. And he's expressed concern for me. He says, you know me, but I'm no crazy, okay? And he was political when he was younger. And he says, listen, I'm just saying that you have to understand that not everybody is going to even try to be as reasonable as you.
That's right.
But here's another minor point of hope I want to point out, okay? And also about privilege, somebody spoke to. I'm wondering if the man the young man, the white man, that jumped in front of this woman had been a black man, we'd have 2 people dead today. That's
Exactly.
white privilege. Okay?
That's right.
Yeah.
And thankful for the fact that this young man did that. It also speaks to another thing that somebody mentioned. These young kids today, regardless of what you say, have no room for hypocrisy. I'm very hopeful about today's generation. When I look at my clinic and I see the black, brown, white, biracial faces that are in these groups talking about this stuff in a way that's much more sensible than adults, by the way, I am extremely hopeful. And I'll say something that may not be popular politically, but I think this current election is a buffer election. The next election is going to be different because the old guard is going to be gone from the political power. Okay.
That's right.
I have so much waiting for the 2024 election because the old guard will be out of the executive branch. So I am extremely hopeful when I see these young brothers and sisters today of all backgrounds and colors, biracial, bicultural, whatever, because they inspire me. They really inspire me.
Yes.
Awesome.
Well, in that conversation, I know I was the one bringing it back to the medical issues, but everybody here should just understand about how things are different. Can you imagine if any of the black groups would have been armed with assault type weapons and showed up in public like these white groups have to intimidate us? Do you think it would be the same outcome, a peaceful resolution, or is somebody getting shot?
No. No.
History says no, because if you understand the history, the SWAT teams emanated from Los Angeles and was a response to the Black Panther Party.
Right.
So the answer we already know is no, it would be different.
That's right. And that's why I advocate for people being armed, but not brazing their weapons. You keep your weapons under wrap unless you have to use them. That's a different story. But if you show people that you have weapons, all they see is a black person, black man, black woman, black whoever with a weapon, and the police respond differently to a black man or woman with a weapon than they do for anybody else with a weapon. That's just how it is.
Orlando Castillo.
Makes sense.
Go ahead.
Told him he had a weapon. Had a concealed weapon permit, but that didn't stop him from getting shot. Okay, so it's my fault. I apologize. Are we gonna try to bring it back again? Let's see if we can get back to a couple of more of these questions about either mental health, physical health, or access to health care, those kind of things, because we traditionally don't do that. And we got to find ways to make sure that our next generation understands that this part of white privilege, we call it, is privilege if we can afford it and put them in a position that they can take advantage of those things and not feel some kind of way about it. Because I know for me personally, unless it's unbearable, I'm not going to the doctor. That's just how I was brought up. And I want to change that and change that for the people around me. And actually, my ex-wife and my daughters thought I was always crazy because I was trying to fix stuff when I needed stitches. They said, no, you can't just tape that up. You can't, no, we got to go. So I understand that thinking, but we as black men, as the older generation, have to change our thought process so we have access to the same resources that everybody else has had access to. Okay, now I'm going to try to shut up again. Let's see.
No, you're doing all right, man. You're doing good. So, time is starting to get away from us a little bit. So I'm going to ask each panelist, Garen, you wanted to say something? Okay. I'm going to ask each panelist to give us 1 or 2 actionable items that that this audience can take away from this session. It's been a fantastic workshop. As a matter of fact, the dialogue and the communication, it's been awesome from all our panelists, and to Reverend Stewart. I just looked at your fiance's viral clip, and it's, man, unbelievable, unbelievable. So one or two actionable items, and let's start with Dr. Glaze.
All right. Reverend Stewart, I saw your wife's video. That was powerful. My wife actually, or your girlfriend, I'm sorry. My wife actually knows your girlfriend, so she sent that to me. I was like, wow. Man, I would say I've been talking about, but advocating for yourself and your community is important. If you see a healthcare provider, make sure you understand what they're trying to tell you what you need. I feel like a lot of time we have patients that do not understand what their treatment is, what they need to get done. And if they don't, they need to take someone with them that can advocate on their behalf, that can make them understand what they need to get done and why it needs to get done. I feel like a lot of doctors want you to have the best health you can have, but they also want you to know why you need this done. If you don't understand it, you're not going to do it. I also say we need to stay informed on the issues. Why are we not getting oral health care? Why are we not getting the treatment that we need? Because we don't have money. I feel like everyone should be able to get care and get the best care they can get. And so we need to let our senators know, our House of Representatives know. We need to find out how we can advocate and how we can be a voice, because they are only in their seat because we let them be in their seat. And so we need to make sure that we do our due diligence and make sure that we find out how we can make an impact on what happens in the laws that are being established. And so those are the most important things that we need to do to improve healthcare and healthcare overall.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Let's go to, I'm gonna go to Dr. Scott.
I think, again, I want to co-sign everything Dr. Glaze said. That I think we are worth it, and you have to have that mentality that you're worth it. One of the things that I see, particularly in men, is that I'm happy, or I'm always kind of comforted whenever I see a man and he comes in with a significant other, whatever it is. It doesn't have to necessarily be wife, friends, someone there who will hear what I'm trying to get across. Someone there who can sort of co-sign the situation, because it's very easy to say, okay, I went to the doctor. You go, what did he say? I'm fine. What does that mean? Everything is fine. What do you think about your blood pressure? It's fine, and it's not fine. So you spend your time, your money to go to healthcare professionals. You need to get something out of it, and by that I come back to what I said originally about knowing your numbers. You know, is your blood pressure more than 120/80? And if it is, what's our strategy to help with that? Are you being physically active? Are you exercising? You know, ideally 120 to 150 minutes a week of activity. It could be walking, it could be going to the gym, not necessarily going to the gym, but doing something more rigorous. But activity reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease. You need to know if you're diabetic, what your blood sugar is. You need to know all these things are important. Your cholesterol as well. All these things are important in terms of the thing that's going to likely kill you, which is cardiovascular disease. And, you know, and I think the last thing is just don't smoke. If you do, stop, because what did Garen say? Not Garen, he didn't say that. Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. McCain said, your body keeps score. Did I say that right? That's right.
Yeah.
And you will pay the price one way or the other. You may be 40 now, or 50 now, or 30 now. Eventually, you're going to be 55 or 65, and those things will come to roost. So
Dr. Scott, when you say don't smoke, that includes vaping, right?
Vaping is probably actually worse than tobacco, because we don't know what they're putting in that stuff. It smells good. It looks sexy. Kids like it. You know, they sell it to kids who are underage because they got money. They pay in cash. But there have been several deaths and several cases of irreversible lung injury from vaping. So trying to get kids to stop vaping is important. It's really, really a very, very important thing to do overall.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Reverend Stewart?
Like Dr. McCain said, I am hopeful for this generation, which is why I'm out there. So I would say to the older generation, more wiser generation, seasoned, just find somebody you can mentor and be your successor. What I don't see a lot in the Black community, and I grew up around all y'all, you know, is that I don't see a lot of training for the next generation to be successors. And the Latin community is building their political bench and organizations starting from elementary school, junior high, and we cannot lose our voices, and we cannot just be protesting in the street. We have to be in positions of power and influence, but we have to cultivate that and be intentional about that. And I know many of you are doing that, but who is your Joshua, Moses? You know, I said that at the Onyx event years ago. Who is that person that's going to take over? Who are your disciples that are going to just say, we got this, we're not going to tarnish your legacy. It's not about ego, it's about forwarding the cause with our new way of doing things, but not disregarding the old way. So just be intentional about that. Because I am hopeful, and matter of fact, Dr. McCain, that was a part of my speech that I'm gonna give today, that I'm hopeful that we can change the face of Arizona.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. McClain?
Yeah, know the signs. Know the signs of stress. Know the signs of anxiety and depression. Depression isn't just sadness. It can also be agitation. It can also be physical. Know the signs and encourage people to seek help. It's really important, okay, that we acknowledge the truth of the stress, the situation we're in, whether biologically or experientially created, to really know the signs, pay attention, and get help.
Awesome. Thank you. I think right now we want to have some closing remarks from our partners. Mr. Prentice Moore?
Hey, you there?
Yep.
Everyone hear me? Okay, I had some technical issues there. I do apologize. But this has just been an outstanding forum. My mind is still blown by some of the information that I've heard. I don't know about everyone else here, but I really thank all of the panelists, Pastor Warren Stewart, Dr. Glaze, Dr. Scott, Dr. McCain. So absolutely amazing. The information has been shared, and you know, I think about one of the points that was brought up about, you know, the health and of the dental health, and I actually have a friend who was required to have his teeth removed in order for him to have a heart procedure. So, I mean, it's dead on, but I really never thought about the scope of that and what that meant in regards to us, especially as Black men, taking care of our health. So, I mean, that's just an example. And then some of the other points that were brought up as well, you know, in regards to legislative and being involved in what's going on with the legislative activities and mentoring someone to be your successor. I mean, these are all just valuable points, and I'm so grateful that we've had this opportunity to be able to, you know, have these brought up and discussed. And once again, I'm thankful for the NAACP and Dr. Hart and Brother Kenneth. We talked a little bit, and you know, I'm just very pleased about everything that has occurred here. You know, what I say is just, you know, for everyone to really take what has been discussed here and what's been shared, take this with us. Let's share this with our families. Let's share this with our networks, our friends, everyone around us. This is just extremely valuable information, important especially for us as Black men, knowing the stresses that we, you know, that we have to overcome every day. Folks typically see us as, you know, supermen. We handle a lot, but like it was mentioned, you know, the body will respond at some point if we don't take care of ourselves. So once again, very much appreciative of everything that's been shared. I am for sure, for myself, holding myself accountable to make sure I share and act on what's been provided today, and just really look forward to hopefully us doing something like this again. This is great, and this is what we need, especially as Black men. So I want to wish everyone a happy Father's Day, and thank you once again for this opportunity for the 100 Black Men of Phoenix to be involved. And I am out.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your attendance and participation. Do we have Mr. C on? Is Mr. C available? Mr. C available. Mr. C is the Prince Hall Grand Master, Mr. Timothy C, but he's not on. So, so if any of you think this is a valuable piece, a valuable event that we've all been on, you know, feel free to join us here at Maricopa County Branch, NAACP. You should see the our website information in the chat. Definitely take a look at that, and also, you know, don't hesitate to donate. You know, you can be a member or you can donate. Membership is $30 a year, but we definitely need your donations, particularly in the COVID environment that we're in right now. So don't hesitate to go out and share your resources with us as we continue to try to do more of what we're doing today. We do have some upcoming events. We do have we're having a virtual event, and that's going to be, I think, in September 25th, I do believe. We have a fantastic virtual speaker that's going to be from the Obama organization. And I'm gonna let Dr. Harding jump in here for a hot minute and share some information about that.
He's having me to jump in because I forgot to email the list to him, but yes, thank you very much. Our next initiative, please sign up for our mailing list. I think Patrick, our social media person, has put information in there. The next major initiative is we started what we call Countdown 2020. We have to take this protest into the voting booth. We have to keep the momentum going. Yes, the protests are needed. We can't do without those peaceful protests. Very valuable. But what about the policy implications afterwards? We can't just protest and let it be in vain. So we've already started what we call Countdown 2020 to mobilize folks to make sure that our slogan is Arrive with 25. We want everyone to think about, reach out to 25 people who you think may not vote or who did not vote. Don't think just of your friends that you know or will go and vote. We have to think about those folks who don't feel like their vote counts and help them understand the criticalness. We are about to lose our democracy as we know it, right? So we have to mobilize as many people as possible. And Dr. McCain, I heard what you said about thinking this is like a watershed moment, but I don't want to wait to 2024 for the change. I want the change right now, and then let those next gen take it from there. You know, I hope a change happens in 2020. We shouldn't have to wait till those old guards get out, so to speak. But our next event, we need as many people engaged as possible in helping us mobilize voters. Secondly, we usually have our annual community awards event. We usually have it in April. Because of COVID, we have rescheduled that event for September the 25th. It will be a virtual event. Our keynote speaker is Attorney Flaherty, who is the Director of Strategic Initiatives for the Obama Foundation. Some of our honorees, and of course, when I start naming them, I'm going to forget someone, but our honorees definitely are Presidential Award is going to Warren Stewart Sr., Reverend Warren Stewart Sr. We are recognizing Anti-Defamation League for their help, work in the community. Lawrence Robinson for his educational reform that he is doing in the Roosevelt School District. Ken, help me. Who are some of the other honorees that I'm forgetting? We have a member on the Chandler School District Board, first female, African-American female on the Chandler School District Board. Those are a few of our honorees, but the purpose of our annual event is to look at all of the heroes in the community and recognize them. So mark your calendar for September the 25th. And as I said, our keynote speaker is the attorney for the Obama Foundation. So I turn it back to our leaders, our forum leaders. Yeah.
All right, well, we are winding down. I think we're right on point in terms of closing out. Anybody have anything last before we finish up? Anything they want to add?
I just want to say happy Father's Day to all the fathers. My dad's on here. I want to say happy Father's Day to my dad.
Awesome.
To my mom, my sister. How you guys doing? That's it.
Well, tell your dad that your pops,
definitely.
You did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys.
With that, I want to thank my NAACP partners in crime, Garen Bond, Patrick Brown, and obviously our president, Dr. Karen Harden, and our state conference president, Dr. Charles Faniel, and our partners in this, our 100 Black Men. So I appreciate you guys coming, Mr. Moore, as well as you guys everybody have a great Father's Day tomorrow, and be blessed. And we'll have to do this again. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're done at 3:59. Right on point. All right. Thank you, guys.
I have a good one. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.